The KB-29 Superfortress did not begin as a tanker. It began as a bomber, and the Air Force converted it because someone had to solve the range problem before the next war started. Modified B-29 Superfortresses fitted with fuel transfer systems represented America's first operational aerial refueling platform. The hose and drogue method came first, then the flying boom. In 1949, a B-50 named Lucky Lady 2 completed the first non-stop around-the-world flight using KB-29 tankers for refueling. The bomber that ended the Pacific War became the machine that proved global reach was achievable. The weapon became the bridge. Britain's first jet bomber became Britain's first jet tanker before anyone had decided that was a good idea. The Vickers Valiant K1 entered RAF service in the early 1950s as the V Bomber Force's first member, and was modified to carry fuel transfer equipment, while still performing its nuclear strike role. Britain needed tankers and could not afford separate dedicated aircraft. The Valiant's wing developed metal fatigue faster than anyone anticipated, and the fleet was grounded in 1965 after cracks were discovered throughout the structure. The tanker that held the line retired before its replacement was ready. Boeing built the KC-97 Stratotanker as the Air Force's first purpose-designed jet-age tanker, powered by 4 piston engines in a world rapidly moving to jets. That mismatch defined its operational life. The KC-97 transferred fuel through a flying boom system while cruising at speeds that forced jet fighters to descend to near stall speed during contact. The solution was to fit some KC-97s with auxiliary jet engines under the wings, creating the KC-97L. More than 800 were built between 1950 and 1956. The aircraft that bridged the propeller and jet age did it awkwardly. But it did it, and the fleet had no other option. The KC-135 Stratotanker entered service in 1957 and has not left. Boeing built 732 of them on the commercial 707 airframe, and the Air Force has been upgrading, re-engining, and extending their service life ever since. Original turbojet engines were replaced with CFM56 turbofans in the 1980s, cutting fuel consumption by 25%. KC-135s have supported every American air operation from Vietnam through Afghanistan and beyond. The aircraft was designed to be obsolete by 1980. Some airframes flying today have been in service longer than the pilots refueling from them have been alive. The tanker that refuses to retire. The Douglas K-3B Skywarrior was the largest aircraft ever to operate regularly from American carrier decks, and converting it from a nuclear bomber to an aerial refueling platform was one of the more practical decisions the Navy made during the Cold War. The K-3B carried fuel in its former bomb bay and transferred it through a hose and drogue trailed from the tail. Carrier Air Wing's flying strike missions deep into North Vietnam depended on the whale to extend their range beyond what internal fuel allowed. It was ungainly, loud, and essential to every strike package that needed to go further than the fuel said it could. The Handley Page Victor was designed to deliver Britain's nuclear deterrent at high altitude and high speed. When surface-to-air missiles made that mission obsolete before the aircraft could perform it, the RAF converted the Victor into a tanker. The Victor K2 entered service in 1965 with 3 hose and drogue refueling points. During the Falklands War in 1982, Victor K2s flew the longest operational sorties in RAF history, supporting the Vulcan bombers conducting the Black Buck raids against Port Stanley Airfield. 11 refuelings per mission. Aircraft passing fuel to aircraft passing fuel to the one doing the bombing. The nuclear bomber that became the logistical backbone of a conventional war. Lockheed never designed the C-130 Hercules as a tanker. The Marine Corps decided it should be one anyway. The KC-130 variant fitted with a centerline fuel tank and wing-mounted hose and drogue pods gave the Marines a tanker that could operate from the same austere airstrips as the aircraft it was fueling. More than 500 KC-130s have been delivered across all variants. They have refueled Harriers, helicopters, and fighter aircraft in every operational environment the Marines have been sent into. The C-130 airframe has been adapted for more missions than any transport in aviation history. The tanker role was one of the first additions. It was never the last. The Soviet Union built the Iliutian IL-78 Midas because it needed the same capability the Americans had built the KC-135 to provide. The IL-78 entered Soviet service in 1987, derived from the IL-76 transport, carrying fuel and tanks in the cargo hold and dispensing it through 3 hose and drogue units. Russia, India, Algeria, Pakistan, and China have all operated the type. The Indian Air Force uses IL-78s to extend the range of Su-30 Mki fighters across the subcontinent. The Soviet tanker became a global product after the Soviet Union that built it no longer existed. McDonnell Douglas built the KC-10 extender on the DC-10 commercial airframe and delivered a tanker significantly more capable than the KC-135 it was designed to supplement. The KC-10 carried 356,000 pounds of transferable fuel, more than twice the KC-135's capacity, and could refuel receiver aircraft through both a flying boom and a hose and drogue systems simultaneously. 60 were built between 1981 and 1990. The KC-10 extended American power projection capability at exactly the moment the Air Force needed that extension, supporting deployments the KC-135 fleet alone could not have sustained. A commercial airliner configured as a strategic asset whose full contribution the public never fully understood. The British government bought the Vickers VC-10 as a passenger aircraft and eventually operated it as a tanker because the RAF needed the capability, and the airframes were available. The VC-10K conversion fitted the aircraft with underwing hose and drogue pods and a centerline refueling unit, giving the RAF a 3-point tanker suited to fast jet operations. VC-10KS served from 1983 until 2013, a 30-year career that outlasted every airliner in British service. During the Gulf War and operations over the Balkans and Iraq, VC-10KS enabled RAF strike packages that would otherwise have been impossible. The airliner that became a tanker served longer in military colors than it ever flew in commercial ones. The Tupolev Tu-16 entered Soviet service in 1954 as a medium jet bomber. The Tu-16N variant adapted the airframe for aerial refueling using a wingtip-to-wingtip fuel transfer method that required the receiver aircraft to fly in extremely close formation. The procedure was difficult to execute and created significant risk for both aircraft. Soviet naval aviation used the Tu-16N to extend the range of strike aircraft operating over the Pacific and Atlantic. The wingtip contact method was eventually supplemented by probe and drogue systems. The Tu-16N proved the Soviet Union understood the strategic value of aerial refueling. It proved just as clearly that the method mattered as much as the capability itself. Airbus built the A330 MRTT on a wide-body commercial airframe and produced a tanker that most air forces evaluating it considered the most capable available. The A330 MRTT carries up to 111,000 kilograms of transferable fuel, operates a flying boom and 3 drogue points, and provides passenger and cargo transport on the same mission. Australia, France, Singapore, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and NATO's multinational fleet all operate the type. In 2011, an A330 MRTT flew the first fully automatic aerial refueling contact in aviation history using boom automation technology. The commercial airliner has become the tanker the world chose when it had a choice. Boeing won the KC-46 contract in 2011, and the aircraft has been delivering problems ever since. The KC-46 Pegasus entered Air Force service in 2019 to replace aging KC-135s, built on the 767 airframe with a remote vision system replacing the traditional boom operator's direct view window. That system was inadequate. Debris was found inside delivered aircraft. Structural issues emerged with the cargo restraint system. Boeing paid hundreds of millions in cost overruns. The Air Force took delivery anyway because it needed the aircraft. The KC-46 is more capable than what it replaces. It arrived late, over budget, and remains the tanker the Air Force needs regardless of what the procurement story cost everyone involved. The KB-50 Superfortress was the tanker Boeing built when the KB-29 was no longer enough. Converted from B-50 bombers, The KB-50 added jet pods under the wings to increase airspeed enough to refuel the jet fighters entering service faster than the procurement system could build dedicated jet tankers. The three-point hose and drogue system allowed the KB-50 to refuel multiple aircraft simultaneously. The aircraft served through the late 1950s and into the early 1960s, filling the gap between piston-age tankers and the KC-135 fleet being built to replace them. It solved a speed problem with jet engines bolted to a propeller aircraft. The solution was inelegant. The gap it bridged was real. China built the Xian YY-20 because dependence on Russian IL-78 tankers for strategic refueling was a vulnerability that Chinese military planners could not accept indefinitely. Derived from the Y-20 heavy transport, the YY-20 entered service with the People's Liberation Army Air Force in 2021, giving China its first domestically produced large jet tanker. The aircraft enables H-6K bombers and J-20 stealth fighters to operate at extended range from Chinese bases. The YY-20 represents a capability gap China chose to close on its own terms, at its own pace, with its own airframe. Strategic aerial refueling is no longer something China borrows. It is something China builds. Airbus designed the A400M Atlas primarily as a military transport, but developed it from the outset with aerial refueling capability in mind. The A400M can be configured as a tanker using underwing hose and drogue pods, enabling it to refuel helicopters and slower tactical aircraft at speeds and altitudes a KC-135 cannot safely manage. France, Germany, Spain, Belgium, and the UK all operate the type. The A400M's ability to refuel rotary wing aircraft fills a capability gap that fast jet tankers cannot cover. A transport that refuels the helicopters flying missions it was also designed to support. One airframe, two roles, one procurement budget. Embraer built the KC-390 as Brazil's answer to a medium tactical airlifter requirement, and configured it from the beginning with aerial refueling capability. The KC-390 entered service in 2019 fitted with a centerline hose and drogue unit, making it Brazil's first jet-powered tanker aircraft. Portugal, Hungary, and the Netherlands have ordered the type. The KC-390 offers tanker capability at a cost point the KC-46 and A330 MRTT cannot approach, serving air forces that need the capability without the strategic scale that larger tankers represent. It is not the largest tanker in any fleet it serves. It is the one those air forces can actually afford to operate. The Transall C-160 entered Franco-German service as a tactical airlifter in 1967. The NG variant added a probandrogue refueling system and an additional fuel tank, giving the aircraft limited tanker capability alongside its transport role. France operated C-160 NGs to extend the reach of Jaguar and Mirage strike aircraft during operations in Africa. The aircraft that began as a tactical airlifter ended its career performing missions its designers had never included in the original specification. France retired the C-160 NG in 2021 after more than 5 decades of continuous service. The tanker role was never the primary mission. For the air forces operating in Africa that depended on it, that distinction did not matter. The Navy converted the A6 Intruder into a dedicated carrier-based tanker because carrier air wings needed organic refueling capability. That did not depend on bringing a large aircraft like the K-3B aboard. The K-60 removed the attack systems and fitted a hose and drogue unit in the former bomb bay, producing a tanker that could operate from any carrier deck and refuel strike aircraft returning from missions with insufficient fuel for a safe arrested landing. 90 A6s were converted. The K-60 served from the 1970s until the mid-1990s when the F/A-18D assumed the tanking mission using a buddy store. The dedicated carrier tanker gave way to a multi-role aircraft doing 2 jobs. Whether that substitution was adequate depends entirely on who you ask. Boeing's MQ-25 Stingray is the first operational unmanned aerial refueling aircraft, and its significance is larger than the fuel it transfers. The Navy awarded Boeing the contract in 2018 to provide carrier air wings with an organic tanking capability that did not consume a manned strike fighter in the tanking role. The MQ-25 operates from carrier decks, transfers fuel to F/A-18s, E-2DS, and eventually F-35CS, and returns aboard without a pilot. Deck operations began during at-sea testing in 2021. The MQ-25 is not the most capable tanker ever built. It is the first unmanned one to operate from a carrier. Every tanker before it required a crew. This one does not. The Convair 880 began its life as a commercial jetliner designed to compete with the Boeing 707 and never achieved the success Convair had intended, with only 65 aircraft built before production ended. Several airframes were evaluated for specialized military logistics and support roles during the Cold War, with assessments examining their suitability as fuel transport platforms. The aircraft's four General Electric CJ805 turbojets gave it exceptional speed for a transport category aircraft, and its performance envelope attracted attention from planners considering unconventional tanker options. The CV880's commercial failure meant no Air Force invested in converting it at scale. The fastest commercial airliner of its era ended not in military service, but in the scrapyard.